Google has agreed to pay a $7 million fine to settle privacy claims related to its Street View service. This comes after a 3-year investigation by a group of attorneys general led by Connecticut. The probe found the search giant Street View vehicles had collected private data from unsecured Wi-Fi networks between 2008 and 2010. Our editor-at-large, Cory Johnson, is on assignment in New York and has more on this story. Cory?
Yeah, Emily, the Street View vehicles were equipped with antennas and open-source software, and those cars collected not just pictures, but names, passwords, addresses, emails, and other personal information from millions of homes and businesses using unprotected Wi-Fi networks. Joining me now is John Simpson, the director of the Consumer Watchdog Privacy Project. He says, well, let's listen to what he says. He's here in there in Los Angeles, here in New York. Hello. Bloomberg contributor and editor of TheNewYorker.com, Nick Thompson, joining me as well. John, let me start with you. It's sort of amazing that Google was out there scooping up all this personal information from people. It seemed invasive enough that they're driving up and down the street taking pictures of everyone's homes and businesses and dog walking. But why were they doing this? Is there any reasonable reason they might want to gather this information?
Well, at the time, they claimed they were trying to locate Wi-Fi networks for geolocation purposes, but they denied initially that they were even gathering the payload data. Then they lied about how it happened and everything else. It's inconceivable to me that they did this without seeking users' permission. It was probably the greatest wiretapping scandal in history.
Well, you undersell the NSA, I think, in that. But Nick Thompson, let me ask you. I mean, what do you? I think I just accused the government of a crime, but hyperbole. My apologies. What do you make of this, though, with Google? Does this fine surely doesn't affect them very much?
$7 million.
But what do you make of the practice? Do you think something changes here?
Well, I think actually the settlement has one very important thing in it, and what the settlement does is the settlement requires or tries to force upon the company some kind of a corporate change. It requires that there be employee education. It requires that the company, really push privacy. It requires that there be Privacy Week. So what it's trying to do is change the culture inside of Google. Google's longtime culture has been, let's collect as much data as possible. Our algorithms will figure out the best ways to use it, and we won't hurt our users. We'll make our users' lives better. So I think changing the culture inside of Google is actually the best way to prevent this from happening again.
But, I mean, John, what do you think of that?
I just don't see that happening.
Yeah,
look, Google has become and is a serial privacy violator. This isn't the only time this has happened. I mean, there was the whole Buzz scandal, which got them under a consent decree with the Federal Trade Commission. No sooner was the ink dry on that they violated people's privacy by hacking around the cookies on the Safari browser. I'm hacking around the privacy settings so they could put down cookies. They just push the envelope over and over and over again. This is to them just the cost of doing business. $7 million. The same day they announced that they're giving their chairman a $6 million bonus. This is just the cost of doing business. I really don't see much of a change in their culture coming at all.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that what kind of made Google what it is?
The culture of collecting data. And
I mean, if Google's, at their very heart, they believe in gathering all the world's data and making it available to people, at the core of their culture, this isn't about like some bad behavior, right? Is a fundamental belief of this company gathering data wherever it lies?
Of course, that's the whole point of the company, is to gather all of the world's information and to make it accessible. I mean, Google is, in that sense, a serial privacy violator. Facebook is also a serial privacy violator. Yeah, that's absolutely a fair criticism of Google. I think after this settlement, I think after what the company has gone through after the last couple of years in which Google's main competitors have been pushing on privacy, trying to nail Google on privacy, Google and privacy has been something we're hearing over and over again. I do think the company is changing. I do think the company is becoming more respectful of users' privacies. Absolutely.
And let me give Google a chance here. Well, they're not here with us right now. Yeah. They did give us a statement. Here's what they said. We work hard to get privacy right at Google, but in this case, we didn't, which is why we quickly tightened up our systems to address the issue. John, did they do it quickly?
They dragged their feet. I mean, look, they got fined by the FCC for hindering the FCC's investigation of this. And then this thing that they're out with as part of the agreement, they're supposed to put out an educational video that will teach people how to protect their Wi-Fi networks. That is like, asking the fox to teach the chickens about how to make their coops secure. It just doesn't make sense. I'm afraid I can't take them at their word on this. I don't see that they're changing that much.
John, do you think Google is the worst of the violators here? I mean, Facebook has gotten a lot of attention for its sort of tone deafness to privacy. Tone deafness makes it sound like it's a listening problem, not an actual violation of people's privacy.
Well, much of what you share with Facebook, you choose to share, which may be something that you shouldn't have done, and sometimes you maybe didn't understand the privacy settings. So it's a little bit different than what Google does. I mean, Google, you go and do a search, they keep track of that. They follow you all around the web when you go with their double-click a subsidiary. So, I mean, they're the biggest data miners out there, I think, and probably the biggest threat to personal privacy from the corporate world. And, you know, I agree that data can be used. It's just that sometimes people ought not to be tracked around when they don't wish to be, and they don't want to turn over their information. And Google doesn't seem to get that.
Indeed. All right. Bloomberg contributor Nick Thompson here with me. Thanks for joining me. And Consumer Watchdog Privacy Project's John Simpson. We appreciate it.